Hey everybody, 4D Sparky. Welcome back to my video tip of the week series for week number 6. We're going to be talking about using color filters when you're shooting in black and white. Now it doesn't matter whether you're shooting with black and white film or you got your camera set up to shoot in black and white. The use of color filters is a very common thing to do when you're shooting in black and white. If you're unfamiliar with the concept, you're wondering, well, why should I bother putting a color filter in front of my lens when the picture is going to be rendered in black and white? True, you're going to get black and white shades of gray, but color filters is how you control your contrast and tones in your scene when you're shooting in black and white. Again, film or digital, doesn't make any difference, the concept is the same. So the way it works, let's take a red filter. If I put a red filter in front of my lens, it will let the red light through. It will let most of the yellow light through, some of the green, and it will try to block as much blue as possible. That's the reason it's red. It lets the red light through. It's kind of like the gas filter in your car. You don't want it to filter out the gas, you want it to let the gas through. That's why it's a red filter, it lets the red light through. A blue filter, it lets the blue light through. If I put a blue filter in front of my lens, it will let the blue light through, and the farther away down the spectrum I get from that color, the darker those colors will be rendered. If I take something in the middle, like a yellow or a green filter, the yellow or green would be brightened and the red and the blue darkened. Now, it's kind of hard to show you here in a setting like this how it works, so I'm going to take a couple of photographs. One is this picture of a colorful sculpture, and another one of a red apple and on a green leaf background, and show you the principles as well as using this spectrum, how this works. So let's go to the computer and fire up the screen capture mode. Okay, I've got the screen capture started, and I'm just going to toss up the spectrum that I created in GIMP earlier, because it was just create a canvas and then spread a rainbow across it, just to show you what happens when you use color filters on the different colors. And I'm going to desaturate this. Look what happens to it. It just turns plain gray. There is just no color to it at all. There's no shades, it's all gray. So this is what happens when you go across different colors. If you put a red filter on, this is basically what your camera sensor or your film sees in terms of color. And then when it makes it black and white, a red filter will make all the colors on the red end of the spectrum lighter and on the blue end darker. If I put on a green filter, this is kind of what you see in the color spectrum, and when you convert it to black and white, everything in the middle of the spectrum is brighter and everything at the end of the spectrum is darker. And conversely, when you put something on the blue end, the blues are rendered lighter and the reds are rendered darker, so when you convert it to black and white, this is what you end up with. So what does that mean in the real world when we're out there in the field taking photographs? Well, let's go on to the next step. Okay, so we're out in the field with our DSLR set up for shooting in black and white, or we're shooting with a film camera and we're doing the old-fashioned analog method. Doesn't really matter which. I like to use this scene to show how to do a proper conversion in black and white. Now remember, there is no one way to do it, it's just which way you want to go. What is your interpretation of this image? Now if I have my DSLR set up to shoot black and white, or I'm shooting in black and white film, I'm going to get this. When you look at this photograph, it's just going to be one great big mass of middle gray right in the middle of the picture. There's a couple of darker grays in here, but not enough to keep the interest of the viewer. This version is boring. I mean, there's just nothing to look at. In fact, your eyes are probably going to wander to the building in the background or the foreground, the base of the sculpture, trying to find something interesting to look at. So a straight up black and white conversion in the camera, or you shooting with black and white film, it's going to fail, because it's going to render the red, green, and blue pretty much all the same color. So this is where you need to learn how to use filters when you're shooting in black and white. Now, if I want to make the red and the yellow figures brighter, I simply use a red figure. Remember, yellow is half red and half green. So a red filter is going to allow the red of the red figure on the right and the yellow figure on the left much brighter, and it's going to darken that blue filter, or that blue sculpture in the background, darker. Now, if I put on a green filter, the blue in the background stays about the same. Here's my red filter. Watch that blue figure in the background. It stays about the same, but the red figure is rendered darker. Now pay particularly close attention to the blue figure on the back and the red figure on the right when I put on a blue filter. The blue filter brings out a really bright blue figure in the background, and the red figure is rendered nearly black. Now, which one of these is the correct one? The red, green, or blue? That's up to you. That's your interpretation. Which way do you want this to be displayed? What is your intent? What are you trying to say? That's where you need to learn to not only use the color filters, but use them to your advantage to get them to the image that you want, whether you want this one, or this one, or this one, or some other possibility that a yellow, or an orange, or a violet filter might get you. So let's take another real-life example and examine it for a little bit. So here we are with a very classic version of using color filters in black and white photography. It's easy to tell that this is an apple, simply because of the red and the green. It's obvious an apple, it's red, it's against a green background. We have no problem telling it's an apple simply because of the colors involved. When we go to a straight black and white conversion, either a DSLR set for black and white or shooting in film, the red color kind of disappears into the green background, and there's no visual clues that this is an apple other than a shape. Now, most people think of an apple being a nice dark red. They want to bite into a delicious red apple. Now, the first interpretation might be, use a red filter. Well, that's actually going to cause a problem, because a red filter is going to make that red apple brighter and cause the dark background to become darker. Now it doesn't look so much like an apple, does it? Because we made the wrong filter choice. What we want to do is darken the apple by using a green filter, which will darken the red of the apple and make the leaves brighter. Now our attention is drawn right to the subject, that red apple, and the red apple is a shade of gray that we would expect more from a nice, delicious red apple. So again, you need to understand what each filter does to the various colors of the spectrum when you make a choice in black and white photography using color filters. So there you have it. When shooting black and white with either digital or analog, shooting black and white with color filters, the principles are the same. Now that you know some of the basics, you can get out there with a little bit more confidence. So this is 480 Sparky. Go forth and actuate.